Hi, I'm just writing some notes.
I saw you in the class now.
Ah, great. Thank you. Okay, so I should answer your questions in here and then we can talk about it. So, you're making some progress.
Yeah.
You have some code written. Good, excellent. And then you had some questions about selection and
mutation.
crossover mutation. Okay. Should we talk about those?
I've written 3 classes.
Yeah.
And I have not finished the test class.
Okay.
This class involves the main method.
Yeah.
And I wrote the structure of these 2 classes in the document.
Yeah. Okay. And then at the bottom you have questions.
Yeah.
I have some comments. So, do you want to talk about your questions?
For the first question,
Yeah.
in my program, here's how I deal with
reinsertion, yeah. So you're right, the normal thing is, so you have a population, P, and then you generate some children.
Yeah.
And you're absolutely right, the normal thing I think is that you take P and C together, and then you select. There are several alternatives actually. So one option is you do that. You take them all together and then you select to form new population.
If I put the parent and children together, the population size is greater than the initial.
Yeah, that's right. And then you select a new population from it.
And then I remove the.
Not necessarily the worst.
Not
So.
just.
You've seen for crossover there's selection is used, selecting 2 things to cross over. You also have selection to choose the new population. And that doesn't necessarily just take the best ones. So there are many ways of doing a genetic algorithm. Most steps are probabilistic, because you want one thing you want to avoid is loss of diversity and being stuck in a local optimum. So usually you don't just take the best. So if you just take the best, they may all be very similar, and they may all be in a local optimum, and then the search might get stuck. So there you'll find it's worth having a look. There are several ways of doing this. I mean, there are many ways of doing this, but a number of them use things like roulette wheel. So you've got roulette wheel for selection for crossover, and they also sometimes use things like roulette wheel to select the population from the initial population and the children.
Do I need to remove the chromosome?
So I think we need to look at something on a little bit more literature on genetic algorithms, because there are several steps. And the question is, having generated children from a population, how do you choose the next population? And there are several ways of doing that. And just choosing the best isn't normally how it's done. That's not normally how it's done. So it's worth having a look. You can, I believe, use things like roulette wheel or tournament, because these are ways of selecting things. And you can do something like roulette wheel and select things, and you select something and you put it in the new population. Do another roulette wheel, select something, put it in the new population. So I think that's one way. I will email you some replies to the questions. So yes, so that's one way of doing it. But I said it's worth looking at literature. Look at papers or books. Are there standard books? Have I got anything here, for example? But you will, yeah, so I'll send you a reply, but you will find there are standard approaches. And you just need one of the ways of doing this. Maybe do a comparison. Yeah.
And for mutation, I just mutate the offspring chromosomes generated by their parents.
And I'm not sure because, so you've got several questions. How did you get from here to here? From the original population of the children, and sometimes you do crossover.
Yeah.
And also mutation on the original to get the children. Sometimes you do both. And you ought to, again, look at the literature. You might mutate the children, or you might do crossover then mutation, or you might do separately crossover and mutation. And those are choices.
And when the parent and children put together, do I need to mutate the whole population?
Yeah, so that's the question. Normally, so there's a mutation rate, and that determines how likely something is to be mutated. So if you look at standard genetic algorithm, there are a number of parameters. One of them is the mutation rate. And that determines how many things on average get mutated. So you might have a very low mutation rate and then almost nothing gets mutated. Or you might have quite high mutation rate and then lots of things get mutated. So that will need to be one of the parameters.
I don't know, I just need to mutate the children, the offspring.
Yeah, or the original. And you could do either. I think it's quite normal to have some of the original being mutated and some so take the original population. So one option is take the original population, use crossover to produce a number of children, use mutation and do some mutation on here as well. Or, and I think that's more normal, is that you do the mutation on the original population, not on the children. Yeah, I think that is more normal. But, so what have you looked at in terms of books or papers for genetic algorithms?
Paper.
Yeah, academic papers or textbooks. What are you basing your design on?
I just look at some materials on the web page.
Okay, you might want to look at some papers and books as well. Maybe go to the library and get a book out on genetic algorithms. Or look at a book on genetic algorithms and see, because there are several alternatives to many of these things. You'll also find later you talk about should you use roulette wheel. And roulette wheel's fine, but there's two versions of roulette wheel. The standard way of selections are either a tournament or roulette wheel, and there are two versions of roulette wheel. And so you know how roulette wheel works, where essentially it's like having a roulette wheel, and each individual.
I use this selector in my program.
Yeah, has essentially the size is dependent upon the fitness, proportional to fitness. Okay. A problem with classical roulette wheel is that you might have something like that. You might have one individual in the population that has much higher fitness than the rest. So, parent one has fantastic fitness and everything else has quite poor fitness. Now if you have that situation, then suddenly parent 1 takes up most of the roulette wheel. Everything else takes up a small section. Now your selection will usually choose parent 1. And you can lose diversity. Now another form of roulette wheel says don't base the proportion of the wheel directly on fitness. Instead, rank the parents by fitness and base it on the ranking. So rather than saying, so suppose you've got trivially up, you've got 5 elements. So parent 1 has got fitness. So you're maximising 1,000 as a maximisation. Parent 2 has 10, parent 3 has 7, parent 4 has 2, and parent 5 has 1. So if you had this situation and you did classical roulette, you would almost always choose parent 1. The alternative is that you don't base it on that. Instead, you say base it on that's 5, that's 4, that's 3, that's 2, that's 1. It's on how it's ranked. And now parent 1's more likely to be chosen, but it won't be chosen almost all the time. So you'll find there are these 2 different forms of roulette wheel, and the form that based on the rank tends to be more robust. It's less susceptible to these kind of situations where one parent has much better fitness. There are lots of things built into genetic algorithms that are trying to stop everything clustering. They're trying to retain a diverse population. And the reason is because otherwise, if you have a local optimum here, you might end up with everything around here and you never escape. So if you want to use roulette, then you might want to look at this form of roulette. But look at a book. Don't just base it on the internet. 2 problems with what's on the, papers and books on the internet, fine. But if it's just stuff on web pages, at least 2 problems. One is you'll miss things. And secondly, some stuff on the internet's not very good. Some stuff's excellent, but some stuff's really not very good.
Okay.
I've been adding notes to your document. I'll email it back to you.
Thank you.
Okay, my pleasure.
And I have not finished the the comments for the second class. I have not translated Chinese comments into English.
Yes.
I will finish them and email you.
Okay. Yeah, of course.
Thank you.
Okay, my pleasure. Okay, I will see you. I'll email this to you, but you'll email me the other comments, and then I'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Okay,
See you.
Thank you.